the meeting to order. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call roll, please?
Counselor Boland.
Here.
Counselor Elliott.
Here.
Counselor Fisher.
Here.
Counselor Furlow.
Here.
Counselor Grizzle. Here. And Counselor Rees-Camp.
Here. Thank you. Okay, approval of council minutes. Any corrections or additions to the previous minutes?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the council minutes from February 11, 2015. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Minutes are approved. Consent calendar, we have the agenda, the Lebanon City Council agenda for tonight. We have the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Board meeting minutes and the Library Advisory Committee meeting minutes.
I would move we approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent calendar is passed. I have two proclamations tonight to read.
That's right.
And the first one I'll read is the National Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas National Child Abuse Prevention Month began in 1983 as part of a presidential proclamation to raise awareness of the alarming rate at which children were being abused and neglected. And whereas this month of awareness has become an annual event reaffirmed by each succeeding president, and whereas every child deserves to grow up in a healthy, safe, and nurturing environment. And whereas child abuse and neglect causes psychological, emotional, and physical harm, which can create lifelong problems for victims of abuse and impacts our entire society and our society's future. And whereas parents, families, and communities can help reduce child abuse and neglect by recognizing that prevention starts with each of us. And whereas the City of Lebanon encourages Lebanon businesses and citizens to turn the town blue by showing your support to stop the hurt. Display blue ribbons, lights, or pinwheels at your home or business during the month of April as part of the Ribbons by Day, Lights by Night campaign to create awareness of the needs to prevent child abuse and neglect throughout. Paul Aziz, Mayor, City of Lebanon. And also on April, just get the date here. On Saturday, April 11th, there's a 9 a.m. walk a mile that you'll sign up, and there's a donation, and that goes towards the, I believe it's the ABC House, I believe. And then at 10 a.m. there'll be a ceremony. The chief, myself, and some other people will be there, and we'll have a ceremony in front of the Justice Center. So that'll be Saturday, April 11th at 9 a.m. Okay, and next, National Library Week. Whereas libraries help change in their community. Whereas libraries help lives change in their communities, campuses, and schools. And whereas librarians work to meet the changing needs of their communities, including providing resources for everyone and bringing services outside of library walls. And whereas libraries and librarians bring together community members to enrich and shape the community and address local issues. And whereas libraries offer programs to meet community needs, providing Lebanon residents with story times, the summer reading program, and Lego Club, Genealogy Society, and the Gift of Literacy. And whereas libraries continuously grow and evolve in how they provide for the needs of every member of their communities. And whereas libraries, library staff, and supporters across America are celebrating National Library Week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Paul R. Aziz, Mayor of the City of Lebanon, proclaim April 12th through the 18th, 2015, as National Library Week, and encourage all residents to visit the library this week to take advantage of the wonderful resources available. And we do have an awesome library, and I wanted to mention, it's not in, actually, has to do exactly with Library Week, but the following May 1st at 8:30, there will be a greeters. The Lebanon Chamber greeters will be at the library, so that's an opportunity if you want to come out. Kind of be a neat little event that day. So, National Library Week and Child Abuse Prevention Month. Okay, next up we have public comments. No. I'm sorry, we have the presentation. I thought that was next. I thought that's why you guys were sitting there. We have the presentation on the Lebanon Vision, BDS Planning, Urban Design Consultants. The floor is yours.
Good evening, councilors and Mr. Mayor. I'm Brian.
We need to turn it. Oh, you want me to turn it on, too? I'm Brian Scott. I'm with BDS Planning and Urban Design. With me is Beth Dufek. We've met each of you during this process and are pleased to be here tonight to give you an update on how the Lebanon 2040 community-wide visioning process is going. I've got a few slides here. What I want to do briefly is give you an update on the process to date, give you a quick summary of the outreach. We've actually gotten a lot of feedback from Lebanon residents, and we want to share the sort of preliminary results on that. Introduce you to the Vision Sounding Board, which is a group of 20 or so Lebanon residents who've stepped up and agreed to help guide this process through a couple of response meetings to that feedback, and then highlight the next steps. So on the process to date, when Beth introduced this to you a few months ago, she showed you this complicated diagram showing you all the stuff we can do, and you can see the little gray screen going across that. We're about halfway, a little more than halfway through the process, and moving into some of the most significant community feedback and interaction over the next couple of months in the process. Quick summary of the outreach to date. We've had the process website live since early January at www.lebanon2040.org. We've also had a community survey going both online and on paper surveys that we've been handing out all over town. That was available through the website. And then we spent 4 days in January and February doing a whole series of one-on-one meetings, focus groups, and phone calls with folks, with Beth and our colleague Andres Mantilla reaching out to lots of small groups in the community, including the Boys and Girls Club, the Chamber of Commerce, the Samaritan Hospital, Comp Northwest, the Senior Center, Green Acres School. Andres conducted a discussion group in Spanish. By now, we've received 313 surveys back and talked to 225 people, so 538 touches of folks in Lebanon giving us feedback into this process. And I think all of you have participated in one of those one way or another, so you know we've been asking questions about values and community fears, Lebanon in a single word, and focus for the future. And I'd like to share with you some of the feedback we've been getting there. When we ask people, what do you personally value about living in Lebanon, the hands down number one response is that it's a small town, followed closely by the community feel and it being friendly. So there's a very strong message there that people like being in Lebanon because it's a small town and a community and it's friendly. So that's a very clear message about something that we want to protect as Lebanon moves forward. When we asked people to describe Lebanon in a single word, we heard home was the first answer. Friendly, growing, community, small. You can see a theme emerging here. Some of those other words, potential, comfortable, peaceful, improving, quaint, welcoming, also out there, but also some things like drugs, depressed, trying. So there are some people who are concerned as they describe Lebanon in a single word. When we asked people about their fears, again, there was a fair amount of consensus, with drugs being the number one answer by a long shot, but also fears about growth and probably losing some of the characteristics that were described in the last couple of slides, crime and fear about the schools, as well as some of those other local issues. And then when we asked people, what area of interest should the community focus on in the future? Answers were spread across. The number one answer was libraries, followed closely by businesses and downtowns and schools, kids, jobs, families. And these kind of start to group together. If you look at it, these three, the business, downtown, and jobs is kind of a cluster around business and the economy. And then there's a cluster around the library, kids, schools, and families. You can start to see some priorities emerge there. And then this drugs issue does come up. So want to make sure that that's really on people's minds as we're reaching out in this survey. We're not asking them about drugs. They're bringing it up. So that's for everybody to note. And we asked people, what type of place would you like Lebanon to be in the year 2040? Here's that theme again, small town, but business-friendly is right there, too. So it's this kind of quality of life friendly thing coupled with business opportunity seems to be a very strong message there. Education, family-oriented, safe, active and healthy, friendly and clean. So everything I've just said in the last 3 or 4 minutes has been a response to a survey where people were answering questions either online or on paper without interacting with a person. So because we know that gives us one kind of answer, Beth and Andres did a lot of work on reaching out, as I mentioned, and Beth's going to share with you some of the things they heard in discussion settings.
So we find it interesting that, we have the survey data, but then there's also more information when we start to talk to people. They say something like, well, we like it because it's a small town, and we have the opportunity to say, well, why? What about the small town feel? So I think it's interesting, all the bold all cap boards are ones that really line up, where there's some alignment with the survey. So given the opportunity to do it one by themselves, people were saying they want like the small town, it's friendly. A lot of people brought up downtown. People in the town definitely recognize that the community is growing. They don't like that. The location in Oregon, people really feel like you're somewhere between the mountains and the coast. Really feel like that Lebanon has been very adaptable, given the history of what has happened in the logging industry leaving, and feeling like you're ready and you're poised to take opportunity. Let's see what else is up there. They find it, that's like just a great, comfortable community feel. These are really things that we would go out and do these focus groups, and we'd ask the same questions that were in the survey. So trying to summarize those. One word, again, growing, warm, not the climate, the friendliness is what people were saying. And then compact, I also equated to they like the small town, again, vibe of Lebanon. And then the fears, the same, that the opportunity to grow, but please don't grow too fast, so uncontrolled growth. Education is on the rise. A lot of people said that, very happy with the direction that Rob has taken the school system, but afraid that if you don't keep it going in the same direction, there could be an education system failure. And then this idea, that comes up with that drugs problem again, which is, if nobody's watching, this is where the bad behavior is going to happen, is that Lebanon could become this mecca of bad behavior.
Why don't you mention I remember you reporting that some of these themes emerged, and then you had a meeting with a group of school kids.
Right, we met with the Mayor's Youth Council, and so we were talking to a bunch of adults, so we talked to like 125 adults, and they would say, homelessness in the schools, drugs in the schools, and we met with the kids, and I thought, all right, here's where we're going to find out. We're going to hear that the adults have a different perception than the kids, and the high school kids said, we want the drugs out of our schools, we want to take care of the homeless kids. As soon as we mentioned, what are your fears, or what do you want to see for Lebanon? So it lined up, so it really felt like, yes, this community is aware at all levels. And then also the kids mentioned, really wanting to take care, so they're high school students, really wanting to take care of their younger brothers and sisters, and wanting to make sure this was a safe place for them, and then and they recognize that not everybody's, worth mentioning the education too, I kind of skipped over that, the gap in education, where not everybody is going to go to college, and the opportunity that Comp Northwest is offering the community is great, but not every kid going through Lebanon's high school or Lebanon school program is going to go. And even the high school kids said that. They said, some of us don't want to go to college. We want to do some more trade type work. And so how do we access that? We have to leave in order to do that. So very interesting.
So those are all big, broad concepts, probably not big surprises there, but also interesting. So what are we going to do with that? The next thing is we want to drill a little deeper into what does this mean for the community. So we worked with our steering committee and tried and pull this together into some key discussion areas or focus areas going forward. We want to focus on arts and culture, because that seems to be a theme that a lot of things were coming through. Artist studios, tourism, public events. So we're going to dig deeper into what are some of the people's values about those things, and what's Lebanon's vision for arts and culture. Community development, density, new construction versus infill, the pace of growth, the cost of living, livable wages, lots of issues there that are sort of economic and community development, sort of how does the community grow, that are key issues there. We want to try and identify the key values there in a vision going forward. Another theme that seemed very strong in talking to people in the surveys is sort of the connectedness. Families, town pride, collaboration, transparent government. People over and over again talk to us about the importance of being connected to each other in Lebanon. And so that's a value that we want to articulate that further in the vision. And one of the things that wasn't on our agenda when we began this project, but it's just coming out overwhelmingly in this process, is people's concern for and passion for downtown, wanting to see vacancies filled, concern about hours of operation, wanting small business programs. People really want to see downtown be stronger than it is, and that has been overwhelming support across the board, as we've talked about. So we want to explore that deeper, and what does that mean for the community? Education, as we've both mentioned, is on people's mind. Skilled labor, filling the education gap, after-school activity, making the schools safer. So we want to really dig into that as education as a core community value. And then health and safety, probably not surprising there, but very important to people. The hospital, seniors, veterans, human services, recreation. So the next step of this process is to dig into these 6 areas to focus our discussion about the details of Lebanon's 2040 vision. And we are convening this vision sounding board, which is really, we've gathered these names, and they're folks from business, education, parents, young professionals, recreation, safety. Their names are at the bottom here. City, medical and the hospital, the ministry, seniors, infrastructure, media. And this list emerged straight out of these discussion groups that we came for. We reached out at the steering committee's direction to various kind of places, and then it was the folks that really spoke up and really got excited during these discussions that we, with the steering committee's approval, invited to be members of this community sounding board. And they're going to have 2 meetings. One is tomorrow evening, and then another one in May. Tomorrow, we're going to ask them to help us flesh out what do these 6 focus areas mean, and how do we want to dig in further in a second community survey. And then in May, they will help us interpret those results and guide the steering committee and the city council in trying to articulate this vision. So the immediate next steps are during April and May, we'll have a second edition of the community survey where we'll ask several questions in each of those focus areas to be more specific about what people want. We'll have a table or a booth at the Business Expo to give people a face-to-face opportunity to interact that way. We're going to convene a big community meeting in April to get feedback that way. And then we're planning a session of the city council and our steering committee to come together in May to have a work session on just what should this vision look like before we bring it back for the council's adoption in June. So that's where we are, and that's what's coming next. Oh, I forgot to do my little bullets. And we'd be happy to respond to questions or any comments.
Good job.
I know you'll probably ask in more detail, but the emphasis you have been getting on the downtown, it'll be interesting to hear in more detail what they want.
Yeah, I think we want to dig in a little further about what people's thoughts are, but I wouldn't have predicted as we started this project that we were going to talk about downtown near as much as we have. It's been just coming up all through the process.
How was the number of touches that you guys had with both personal and written? How was that with your expectations when you went into this? What was your goal?
I think we're pretty happy. We have done processes like this in a variety of communities of different sizes. For a town the size of Lebanon, I feel pretty good about this. I think it'll be important that we really work to get response to this second community survey, because it'll be much more specific, and hopefully we can build some excitement around people what are putting there, and then get a turnout for those community meetings, because I'd like to touch more folks and really solidify the several dozen folks that we think will be most motivated to help you move forward with taking this vision, turning it into a strategic plan, and being champions for moving those objectives forward. I feel great about it so far, but we're not near done.
Two questions. First, you indicated your surprise about the corollary between the youth and the adult responses. Was your surprise because that's not been your experience in other communities where you've done this project?
That's a good question. I think it was healthy skepticism that the adults were going to speak in a voice that the kids would, sync up with. And in fact, it was so parallel that we were startled. And then I would couple that with, it was the Mayor's Youth Council, and there's going to be some self-selection going on about who would show up at a meeting with that title. We had recently in another community, we did a thing where we had a youth summit as part of a big community meeting, and we had a lot of kids show up for it, but there was a similar kind of parallel as these were future senators. They were the folks that were motivated to get engaged in the community, and it wasn't like a random sample. And I bet the Mayor's Youth Council is a similar thing, or these are the folks that will be leading the community a generation from now, and they're already engaged. So there's probably a common thread there.
Mm-hmm. Second, from your experience, are you concerned about any blind spots that you're seeing this far in the process? Are there things that the council or the steering committee should be aware of that that hasn't come up on the radar, and it generally does?
Good question. Okay, so if I had to put out a note of caution that we want to probe in the second half of this process, it will be the importance of members of this community that don't look and talk like the majority of the community. You have a growing population of folks that are of different ethnic descent and people with different economic backgrounds, and I think it'll be important to consider the needs and wants of those folks and how the community can serve them and make them part of the community in the most appropriate way. And I think that's an issue that is important, and it will be important, I think, that it is spoken of and considered during the second half of this process.
As you guys move through this process, did you notice any kind of a trend of maybe opposing ideals amongst the community where they were wanting this on one hand and also this on the other, and those two were at opposition?
You have a thought on that?
The first one that comes to mind is flow through the city. So we met with industry that would like really nice truck routes, and we've also met with the bike and pedestrian advisory group that would like really nice bike lanes and sidewalks. So really just trying to figure out how everybody can share the street, I think, was one thing that I thought was opposing. Can you flip back to my slide that has all the...
How about the
I'm gonna need
growth?
some triggers.
How about the growth versus small community?
That's what I was going to say.
Because that seems pretty,
prevalent.
yeah.
Business friendly, but small town, or?
So the other one that I would come back to Councilor Rieskamp's question about downtown. There's been a fair amount of sort of hand-wringing about wish downtown could be better. And so the key question will be, does that correlate to the community being willing to take some bold moves that would really strengthen downtown and give it a shot? And that would take saying it's a community priority and making investments. And so I would say it's not a given that result will come from these comments, and I think that'll be an interesting question, and there are probably people with differing opinions about the role of the government in making that happen. Go ahead, Beth.
The only other one I would say is some people hope you become like Corvallis, and some people hope that you don't ever become like Corvallis. So there's, this idea that says, so that speaks to the growth. Like, we want to grow thoughtfully, but not that big. So I would say, actually, overall, the majority of people are excited about the growth. We just want to make sure that it's mindful, that you grow at a good pace and you keep in mind the future.
You feel it was more of the small town feel versus the physical small town, staying small population-wise, staying small geographically?
Staying connected
Staying-
and feeling like when you walk back, when you leave your door in the morning, that you still know your neighbors, that you still can, and no matter where you're going, that you'll see everybody you know.
Do you, and maybe you've gathered this from the surveys, but small town has a lot of meaning from, is that 15,000 or is it 30,000? Or, because when I talk to business people in other communities and I ask them about, would you open a business in downtown Lebanon? Their overwhelmingly answer is Lebanon is not big enough.
And so, good observation, and that is a concern. The interesting thing is if you poll, the Oregon Tourism Commission has frequently polled visitors to Oregon about what their number one priority or destination is, and the coast and Multnomah Falls are generally right at the top, and next is consistently small-town shopping. And, when you say, what do they mean by that? Well, they don't mean Walmart. They mean something that's different and unique in each community. And I think there really is a market for those things. And if you can get it to a place that there's something unique about our place and these folks that are different than every other place, that's something that really has an attraction. And you have to find a few folks like that can be destinations that can pull people in, and then other folks that can ride off of that. But it's clearly trying to figure out that unique niche.
That's sort of where the arts tie in too, it seems like.
Very, very connected. And it's like, you got to go to Lebanon because they got whatever it is, and those pieces are there.
Like, no one goes to Newport without stopping at a taffy shop.
Yes.
That kind of
Yes.
thing is what you're...
Perfect example.
A question on, you said I can't remember his name.
Andreas
spoke with the non-English speaking folks. I'm curious if there was a difference in some of the answers from that group.
Please ask him the next time. I just want to make sure that feedback comes directly. My memory of his report on that is that there's a pretty substantial disconnect between those folks and whatever is going on with the city and that kind of stuff. Is I remember a comment about just, what does that have to do with us? Kind of comment. And then also another kind of recurring theme that I remember him reporting several times is you've got adults who don't speak English, who have to pull their kids out of school to go to their appointment with the agency that does whatever, so their kid can interpret for them because their kid does speak English, and their kid ends up missing half a day of school or something like that. I remember that theme coming back and him reporting that. And Lebanon wouldn't be the only place where that's an issue, but also something to be sensitive to. So yes, there are distinctly some differences.
And I think, too, he mentioned, which I thought was remarkable, was recognizing cultural differences and the women saying, well, what jobs are there for women? Really understanding that is a fundamental culture difference in the Latino community, which is women do some things and they subscribe to that and they agree to it, and you just have to respect it and honor it.
I remember him saying, you mean women's jobs?
Yeah.
And he was saying, no, just any jobs. And there was a cultural thing going on there.
Any other questions? Did you guys have anything else?
Nope.
No?
All right. Thank you, Beth and Brian.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, next up, we'll have public comments. The council welcomes all respectful comments regarding the city's business. Citizens may address the council by approaching the microphone, signing in, stating their name and address for the record. Each citizen is provided up to 5 minutes to provide comments to the council. Council may take an additional 2 minutes to respond. City Clerk will accept and distribute written comments at a speaker's request. I have Kevin Mallon up first.
Thank you. As you stated, my name is Kevin Mallon. My wife Rita is right back here. We've lived in Lebanon for 8 years now, and one of our biggest concerns is the fluoride in the drinking water. I'm going to read a little something that'll put some facts out, but what I really hope for is that people would go home, get online, and Google fluoride, and get some facts on your own. Things are changing all the time. The general knowledge of it is so much different than when we were kids, when it was just supposed to be good. Things have changed. This letter is to address the possible termination of the fluoridation of Lebanon's domestic water supply. Thank you in advance for your consideration. While the U.S. has enjoyed a decline in tooth decay over the past 60 years, the same decline has occurred in all developed countries. Most developed countries, however, have never added fluoride to their water. Recent reviews
Can you stop for just a second? Please, out in the audience, can you keep quiet so we can hear? Thank you. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. Recent reviews done for the National Academy of Science by a committee chaired by toxicologist Dr. John Dewell conclude that fluoride is in fact an endocrine disruptor, potentially impacting the bones, the brain, the thyroid gland, the pineal gland, and more. The committee has called for studies to determine the relation between fluoridation and bone disorders, thyroid disease, low intelligence, dementia, and diabetes. Also, according to another expert, Dr. William Douglas, fluoride increases the absorption of aluminum. In some areas with fluoridated water supplies, as many as 70 to 80% of children suffer from advanced dental fluorosis, a condition which causes erosion of tooth enamel, streaking, and permanent staining of the teeth. Water fluoridation is, in effect, adding a prescription-level dose of fluoride to every glass of water every person consumes. This greatly exceeds the level considered safe for infants. Researchers now advise against preparing baby formula with fluoridated water. Babies given higher than recommended dosage of fluoride are at high risk of developing fluorosis. The average baby drinking formula prepared with fluoridated water is consuming 100 times the quantity of fluoride deemed safe. Not only does this endanger their dental health, according to Harvard scientists, but babies' developing brains are also at risk. It is acknowledged that fluoride helps prevent tooth decay, but the main way it works on teeth is by topical contact and not by ingestion, contrary to earlier beliefs. Ingesting a dangerous and toxic substance to obtain the same effect available by simply brushing is nonsensical. For that matter, water fluoridation began before the widespread availability of fluoridated toothpaste, so in effect, we're now double dosing ourselves. It's time to reassess the situation. Please dare to reconsider the existing water fluoridation policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any councilors like to comment?
Yeah, I've had this come up a couple times, actually, and I'm not opposed to, maybe we need to have an annual staff report on what has changed scientifically. Maybe it's okay to reevaluate year by year instead of just saying, well, we implemented this 10 years ago and we're going to roll with it. If science changes, then we should consider standing behind the science. So I don't know if that would be CH2M Hill that would give us reports on that, or if that would be our own staff, but I'm not opposed to hearing a report on what has changed.
We had pretty extensive conversations about it, maybe just before you got here.
About 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was right
It was about a
after.
year and
Yeah.
a half ago that we had fairly extensive and tons of research. And I know I made several phone calls and researched a lot. And then at that point, I was fine status quo. I'm not opposed to every other year or every 4 years. I don't know if anything's changing, but that.
I don't know.
fast, but-
Things do change, so
Sure.
I'm not opposed to learning more.
Evaluation.
Yeah.
You know, I think we heard basically the same information some 18 months ago, whenever it
Yeah.
was. But it wasn't just 18 months ago. We've had this come up 5 years back, 10 years back, and we've always been given, I guess, positive feedback that fluoriding drinking water is the right thing to do. But I am having second thoughts about that. And several communities in the state of Oregon have discontinued fluoriding their water. I agree with Jason. Maybe we need some scientific.
Our fluoridation was added by vote,
Yes.
so to reverse it, it would not just be a council decision, it would
I
also
believe
be
it'd
a
have to
vote.
be a vote, wouldn't it? Yeah. Yes, it would have to be on the ballot.
It's not a, we can discuss it, but we
Yeah.
can't make the decision.
As a public health professional, this debate is as old as science itself. And one of the most difficult things in evaluating a community's response to the issue is to separate out good science from people who have agendas and the scare tactics that come along with that, on both pro and con. I've seen both sides get very emotional and go beyond science in its claims. So it is something that there needs to be an evaluation of the source material that's either for or against it, not just what is said. And that is the most difficult thing for a community to assess individually and for elected officials. I would be glad to share offline some interesting stories in my career of communities that have dealt with that. And it is a challenge, and I do believe that that the science needs to be looked at periodically, as with every health practice. But I think it's important for the council to evaluate the source of the material. And if there is a petition in the community to put the item on the ballot, then I think the council ought to be active in helping develop a good dialogue of that, in making sure that the community is educated appropriately with facts and not just with scare tactics.
Yeah, and last time when we had that round, I remember receiving emails from people that were from all over the country, from all different scare tactics of both sides, actually.
Yeah,
it was very
exactly.
confusing, and it was just, there was a lot of information. So, Mr. Mellon, I appreciate your thoughtful letter and bringing that up to us. Sure, go ahead. Okay, thank you.
I will say I was a little disappointed that when this originally was enacted, one of the real active community members was a dentist. And he had mentioned that the amount of advanced tooth decay in this town was, he had some number that he cited that was way beyond other communities. And I was hoping to have him come back and say, hey, in the last 5 years, this has happened, and he moved away. So they went our baseline. But I've talked to other dentists, and it's hard to pinpoint what is the baseline that we're waiting to see as far as results. I don't know that we're going to ever see that. So, I don't know, I have mixed feelings myself, because if someone truly wanted to get a fluoride treatment, there's more than welcome to go do that. And it does sometimes concern me that to blanketly do something to the water that people don't want to partake in, that those that did could go do, kind of bothers me a little bit. But then again, I'm a little concerned about young kids that have no choice, if indeed are getting premature dental issues, and their parents just don't bother to give them the treatments or whatever. That it's all pretty tough to decide what's the right thing to do.
Any other comments?
What kind of
How do we?
kind of a cost are we looking at for the fluoride that's going into the system?
If I remember, it wasn't, it wasn't very much. Ron,
No.
do you know off the top of your head fluoride cost? Yeah,
Somewhere around 20,000 a year. It wasn't-
yeah, it's not huge.
And that's when it's working. Half the time it's not working.
So does that mean the fluoride doesn't get put in, or? Yeah. Okay, I was just curious, okay.
There are two,
I thought the water was better today.
There are two main costs associated with the system. One is the infrastructure necessary to adapt it to the water system and to provide the solution and ensure it's at the right concentration. And the other one is the ongoing supplies. And the capital investment is, generally a one-time thing, and the equipment is generally good for 20 or so years. And the ongoing cost is generally less than $1 per person per year.
So did we want to take any action?
I don't know, other than a survey of our citizens, if we know if they have a different opinion now than they did when they voted on it, years ago.
Well, I tend to want to lean on, we lean on our staff as the industry professionals, and so I tend to want to lean on staff and/or their consultants and say, maybe get us a report as to, are the amounts that we are currently infusing in our water supply still appropriate? Has there been new science that suggests we go a different direction? And, I'm sure amongst the water industry, this is a hot topic, always
And the
probably.
dental industry.
And the dental industry. So we can probably touch bases through our own staff or our contract staff and probably get some answers in general, no?
And maybe we could have them report back to us with some information, and then maybe have a meeting where it's announced to the public so that we could have people come in and talk about it. Maybe some of the dentists, local dentists.
Yeah, I was going to say,
And-
maybe a subcommittee that could,
Or maybe
that could break off, because I know Adam Kirkpatrick is fairly passionately pro. And he, because you can find, you can find websites on both sides that
Yes.
that cite science says this. Well, this happened here and this happened here, and you can go down that path on both sides.
We may
And
have
I
some-
have seen, I think we all have seen, if you've spent any time looking into the issue, and I think Adam had some really reliable sources that I was able to read a little more thoroughly. So I think, kind of away from this and sub.
Maybe able to get somebody from COP Northwest who has some experience
That
in
would
that.
be great. Someone dental, someone maybe from the schools
Mm-hmm.
that could seize the kids.
How about a town hall kind of thing? Could we do something like that? Put something like
Yeah.
that together where we bring the experts in and we allow the public to get up and ask a question, or we allow, that way the information is disseminated one time, more or less, to the largest group that wants to be there, and that's something we could do.
Sure, I could make you the chairman of the committee.
I could do that.
Just
I
kidding.
wonder if there's a correlation between purchased bottled water versus fluoridation.
You can filter it out. You- Down to 1 micron? It's smaller than a micron?
It's in solution. Normal filter wouldn't take it out.
Didn't take it out.
You guys say you're going to consult with dentists, that's great, I'll just consult with them. The real reason I'm here is about the babies, all the babies and the baby formula, or baby water, which then, and consult some people about how much fluoride infants should be consuming. Because I have to research that.
Yeah, I think if we're going to talk to people, we're going to talk to medical professionals, and they're the industry experts there. So I think we would try to hit all edges of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Also, Springfield, Eugene, fluoridated water. I wonder why. Maybe we could just talk to there.
That's great advice. Yeah.
Okay, between now and next meeting, why don't I work on getting a committee together? We can get a committee and working on that. Get some people from the community and...
Just, you probably, most of you are aware of this, but the amount of fluoride that goes into a system that is adding fluoride, it's titrated based upon the amount of naturally occurring fluoride in the area. And depending upon where a community draws its water and how much is in the natural aquifers and the rivers in that area will determine how much is added if fluoride is added, because the threshold is 1 part per million is what they're trying to get at, and or less than that, 0.1 part per million. So you don't want to exceed that, or you're going to end up with fluoridosis of the teeth and all other kinds of problems. So there are no two communities necessarily that would have the same amount added. You have to have a baseline to determine what you're going to add.
Okay, thank you very much again. Anyone else from the public like to speak?
Got a statement, I was going to keep my mouth shut until they mentioned buying this bottled water from Bill Sullivan that lives here in town. But anyhow, when I was living in the Dalles, I went to Fred Meyer's one morning to get some groceries. And there was a gentleman at a machine over against the wall with these water jugs getting water. And I looked at the machine, fell to the top of it, come a copper pipe, went across the ceiling of the building and down to where the city water come inside of the, here he was spending, I don't know how much, but I thought that was a pretty smart situation.
Was that it, Bill?
That was it.
Thank you, sir.
Had something else, but you guys would say I was prejudiced, so I'll keep my mouth shut for a bit.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to speak from the community? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the agenda items. Thank you. Thank you. Folks, did you put your phone number on that paper or email address? Would you do that with the clerk, please? Thank you, just so we can contact you. Okay, item number 1, establish and appointing an ad hoc Mural Park Revitalization Advisory Committee. About 2 years ago, right after I took office, I was contacted by Scott Breslin from the now going to be the Conversion Brewery, who is locating downtown right next to Mural Park. He was looking at different buildings around town and wasn't having good luck. He was looking at Mrs. B's Teas and some of the other places around. And over time, I was kind of hoping that near Mural Park would be a good idea, and maybe Mural Park could be developed or something could happen there. So over time, over time, they're actually putting in cement floors in there. They're redeveloping the place. The business is going to open. But they've requested and came to me and talked to me about opening to Mural Park so that there would be a place for people to sit and eat. And it's going to be a family-style restaurant with a brewery. They're going to also brew like root beer and other kind of soft drinks too. It's going to be a neat place. Very, very nice location. It is very close to the Growler, so there's kind of a whole community thing going on there. Next door on the other side of Mural Park, as you probably know, is the dance studio. So the dance studio also has contacted me, and they would be interested in having a stage out there, something so that they could perform on, and the brewery. So there's a lot of ideas. There's nothing set, there's nothing that we've done yet, but that park has really fallen in disrepair, and it's pretty ugly right now. The paintings, the murals don't look good anymore. The paint's peeling and just faded, and it just doesn't look very good. It's just an unattractive spot in town right now. So I decided I want to put together a committee, and with your approval, to revitalize that park, and I think that would be a really nice spot. I've got some personal ideas that I want to throw in, but I'm open to whatever the community wants to do. But I could really see a theme of something that makes sense downtown, like strawberries, or something that would, tie in with our Strawberry Festival, or something with our community that would be a lot more than what it is. The totem pole is kind of cool, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense in Lebanon. Maybe when we had timber at a particular time, but it just doesn't seem to. So the other thing is the reason I want to do a committee is everything that's there, like the totem pole and those murals, I do not want to just take things down that have been done by artists. I want to make sure that they're preserved, or things are done to replace these things, or, relocate the totem pole, whatever it may be. So that was one of the reasons for the committee, and to see what we could do. The committee, if you noticed in the resolution, it has an ending time of, I think it's June.
August 31st.
August 31st, thank
Wasn't
you.
it?
And so it's not a long-term thing. I just want to get people together, come up with some ideas, and later on, as we talk about some of the hotel taxes and some of the ideas that could be used for that, this might be one of those tourism-type dollars that could be used to help improve that park. But I think it would be awesome to have a place where the community could come together down there, and it's a great spot in town to get things going, where people could come out and have a drink, have a bite to eat, and maybe watch some entertainment.
We don't have anything like that in Lebanon, so I think it's brilliant. And with the exception of Shelley, I love these people that you've put together
Yeah, and we did
go over that. I think it's a good blend.
Thank you. I tried to get people from the businesses, and then also from our staff, but then we also want to get the Arts Guild involved.
Yeah.
And the Partners for Progress, too, so.
Perfect. I love it.
Okay. Any other questions?
So would a report come back to the council?
Yes. Yeah, this committee is just to come up with the ideas. We want to look at, the things that I just talked about, what the details might be. Do we want to get a landscaping plan going? And then, of course, there'd probably be some costs, but we might get in kind on some of the things. It might be a grant. There's all kinds of things we could do, but that's what I want the committee to be able to just sort out and come back to you guys.
So it's not going to have an impact upon the development of the budget for this current cycle that we're getting ready to move into? So you're probably not going to have it in time for that.
It could, but I don't see it as being a huge cost if there's anything.
I think it certainly could, and we're going to be getting into the discussion about the transient room tax here a little bit later tonight. That could come to bear on that. So there's probably some adjustments in the budget anyway, because we are going to have new monies there, and what are we going to do with them? So that's going to be reflected somehow in the budget.
Any other questions?
I'm all for it. It's a great idea.
Okay, have the city attorney read the resolution.
Resolution number 2015-4, a resolution of the City of Lebanon creating an ad hoc mural park revitalization advisory committee.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the ad hoc mural park revitalization committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The resolution passes. Number 2, large government grant application, River Park Shelter Restroom Facility Replacement. Jason Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm once again setting before you asking for a resolution authorizing staff to apply for a large government grant to replace the failing structure and bathroom at River Park, as well as build an interconnecting trail segment within the park. We have Last year, our largest reason we were unsuccessful, we actually tried to use 2 grants because we could not leverage our cash match that we had last year. So we tried to use our match with another granting source, and that's really tough to get done. So this year, our scoring points, we're in a lot better position to receive the grant. We have right now 51% of the total project cost as grant match, which is great. The grant requires 40, so anytime we can be above, it really helps us score better on the grant application. We've also looked at some design ideas in the structure and with the connectivity of the trail segment, and all those things increase our scoring points through SCORP. So that's about it. If you have any questions, happy to answer.
Jason, if successful, when would construction start on that?
We'll have to wait for a notice to proceed. Grant awarding would be most likely in the fall before we would ever get our letter to get started.
Next spring,
Yeah.
a year from now.
Yeah. The demolition may happen sooner, whether we want it to or not.
So then we would service the public then with just portable.
Yeah, we're really close to that point right now, of just putting it on the ground and using portable restrooms for the park users out there at this point.
Any other questions?
No-brainer.
Okay. Have the city attorney read the resolution, please.
Resolution number 2015-5, authorizing the City of Lebanon to apply for a local government grant from the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department for the removal and replacement of the restroom and shelter at River Park and delegating authority to the city manager to sign the grant application. I would note that it should be city manager. Manger.
Okay.
City manager. City manager.
City manager.
Spell check.
Okay.
Move for approval.
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 2015-5. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Resolution passes. And thank you, Jason, for the pictures, too. That really helps, seeing some of those photos. That was good in your package. Okay, number 3, small government grant application, Christopher Columbus Park Playground Equipment Replacement.
Yeah, again, seeking approval to apply. Christopher Columbus, the playground equipment was constructed in the early 80s, mid 80s, and none of it is too standard or frankly very safe for as industry professionals would say now. But we've recently, with the generous donation from the McDaniel family, have improved our chances to receive the grant because we can use all of that as grant match. And as we've gone through the application with that grant match increase that we have, we've been able to add things like ADA access, ADA spectator area, single stall flush restroom. The park is not serviced by a restroom at this time. And a pathway from 10th to 12th Street that'll all be ADA compliant. So the donation really helped. We're very thankful for that.
This is in addition to the ball field?
Yeah.
Very good.
So you presently have the 40% that you need for the match already?
Yeah, actually, the numbers are generically, I haven't really gotten really far into the application, just made sure we would have what we need. And we're going to most likely be around the 65%. So we'll score very well in this grant as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Any other questions?
Give us something we could fight about.
City Attorney, read the resolution, please.
Resolution number 2015-6, authorizing the City of Lebanon to apply for a local government grant from the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department for the replacement of playground equipment at Christopher Columbus Park and delegating authority to the city manager to sign the grant application.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution number 2015-6. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Resolution passes. Thank you, Jason. And thanks for your work on getting the grants and working around our budget, 'cause I know that the Budget Committee was concerned about parks, and then we had a lot of talk about that last year, so thank you. Okay, number 4, contract for WWTP Fluent Pump Station Improvement Project. Ron Whitlatch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. What we have before you tonight is a recommendation to award our effluent pump station project. We received 4 bids for it, which is pretty good for considering what type of work it is, mostly electrical and a little bit of structural. The project will replace the 70s era vintage pumps that are currently in our effluent discharge pump station, and replace them with new ones and also increase the capacity. Staff's recommending award to R.L. Reimers out of Albany, Oregon. With that, I can answer any questions.
They came in way lower than anyone else. Do you know anything about this company, Ron?
Well, yeah, they've done a lot of work. They've worked exclusively for Intech, very reputable company. I believe the reason they're so low is they're going to do a majority of the work themselves, whereas a lot of the other contractors had to sub that work out. So they're going to end up doing a lot of the work themselves. But they're very reputable. They've been around for a long time, and he'll do a good job.
Good price. Any other questions? Okay. Entertain a motion?
I'd move for approval. Give it to R.L. Reimers.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to give the R.L. Reimers Company the bid. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's passed. Motion passes.
Yep.
And
What's the completion date estimate?
That's a good question. We won't start installing the pumps probably till late August. The reason we put it out to bid right now is because there's such a long lead time on getting the pumps. And so what we want to do is we want to take that pump station down in our lowest flow time of year, so August, September type, and then have it back online by October, because they'll have to bypass pump during that process. So the lowest flows we can possibly get, which, I don't know, that's maybe April this year, I don't know, but August or September is usually when that happens, so sometime around that period.
Okay. Number 5, authorization to purchase real property for raw water intake site. Ron.
Thanks again, Mr. Mayor. Back in August last year, staff came to council and we received a consensus to begin negotiations on a piece of property out off of River Road that we, at the time, believed to be probably our best shot at a river intake location. Since that time, we've done quite a bit of investigation, met with regulatory agencies. I don't have anything real hard and fast other than the detailed work that we've done so far shows that it's a very viable intake location. In fact, I looked at screen designs from our consultant today. They're actually moving forward with design. So it is a viable location. One of the next steps was to see if we could get a conditional use permit from Lynn County. In my memo, it says that we didn't have that. Well, we got that Monday. And the county is giving us a conditional use for the property, barring any, I believe somebody could appeal to the Lynn County Planning Commission by March 18th, but we don't believe that anybody's out there that's going to appeal it. We didn't have anything negative while it was out for a 30-day comment period. So with that, we would like to move forward with purchase of the property. Is there risk still involved? Yes, there is. There's risk in the fact that we don't know for sure. We're pretty confident that we can get permits. We've met with regulatory agencies, and they've all had positive reviews of it. Obviously, there'll be mitigation there. We've met with the county in terms of using their right-of-way for a pipeline. That's all been positive. So right now, as of today, we see nothing that should stop us from going to the river and building the river intake. Obviously, there'll be permitting challenges. One of our biggest challenges will probably be moving our water rights. All stuff that can be done, but takes time. So with that, we're proposing to have council pass a motion to authorize staff to purchase the property. And I can answer any questions on that. Anybody has any questions?
No. Good move.
There are no questions. I would move that we authorize staff to purchase the property for our river water intake.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the property purchase for the new river intake. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Great. And we'll keep you posted. We're planning probably here in the next couple of months to do an update on the whole project itself. We've got a lot of preliminary pieces to it, but I want to make sure we can wrap it up in one nice little bow instead of all these different little pieces. But so far, things look really good for it.
Is there a time frame at all yet? Is it still too early?
In terms of construction?
Well, as far as getting the intake and everything being approved by the agencies.
But by the end of next year.
Best case scenario, we've ran a lot of different scenarios. Best case scenario is you would, I believe in April, we're going to file our joint application, which means then you start the permitting process. Typically, that can take 6 months. That might take longer if somebody has heartburn over it. We don't know that part, but that's usually a 6-month process. In the meantime, on another front, we're working with our consultant, another consultant, to move our water rights from the existing location, which is at the headworks now, down to this new intake. So that takes time. So in a perfect world, if everything was to line up, like a Swiss watch, which we know it won't, but I'll give you this, we could potentially be ready to go by next March. Design's not an issue. Our consultants can fly this thing out real quick. More likely, my likely scenario would be by next July we get to bid it. So then you're building, basically starting on the treatment plant site, building that, and then the intake would be the following year. So they're all tied together.
When we first, I was kidding when I said into next year, because when we first started talking about this, I remember a 20-year time frame thrown out there. The possibility of...
Yeah, it just depends on, and that could take us up to 20 years to move our water rights. We believe that we've got 3 or 4 different certificates. We believe that we can move 1 or 2 of them relatively easy. It may take us 20 years to move the other one. That's not going to stop production at the water
We're not
treatment
20
plant.
years away from a new water intake.
Well, I hope not. Either that or Jeff's going to have to buy a lot of duct tape.
I just want the record to reflect that Ron promised end of next year.
Perfect. That's exactly what we need. And that's not to say that something that's not going to come up. With environmental agencies, especially with the type of fish that we have, we've got the salmon, but we've also got probably some of the best consultants working. We've got the people that have written the books on this stuff, so I'm pretty confident. They've said nothing to the contrary, and we ask the questions all the time, so
Good.
we stay in good communication.
That was why I had asked. That was what Rebecca said. I was really concerned it was years and down the road, and it's just really exciting to see that this could be sooner.
Everything we see right now, we're moving forward at a pretty good pace. Seems like a snail's pace to me, but looking back on it, it could be a lot slower.
Anything less than 20 years is a win in my
19 years
in my
and 11
original
months.
expectation.
When do you anticipate closing on this property?
We have to close by March 31st. And I drug my feet on it as long as I could to make sure that we could get the conditional use before we purchased, and it came in Monday. So
awesome.
I see no reason not to purchase it and go forward. And even if the thing fell apart, it's property that's been approved for septic and a well, so it is a sellable piece of property should something go sideways. So. Okay.
Good. Thank you, Ron.
All right, thanks.
We're going to take a quick 5-minute recess. Call the meeting back to order. First up be number 6, the award for contract for banking services. Dean Baum.
Okay, back in November, I believe it was November, I came to you with a request to go out with an RFP for banking services. Not that we were disillusioned, we weren't unhappy with our current bank, Wells Fargo, but the way city government works, we have contracts, and when they run out, we have to go out with an RFP. That's what happened in the situation. So we went out with a banking RFP in November. We had 5 responses. I will say I made a visit to each bank in this town. I went in and talked to the branch manager of every bank, informed them, and made sure they had a copy of the RFP. So I talked to everybody. I received 5 responses back. After we did our review, we came out and we interviewed 3 of them. The reason the other 2 were not interviewed is because they didn't offer all the services that we needed. I think in both cases, they did not offer third-party custody for investments. So that was one of the requirements. So we interviewed the 3 banks. The first go-around, myself and Sarah in my office reviewed all the RFPs, and so we chose the 3 banks to interview. Sarah is now off on maternity leave, so I had the finance director, Linda Darling, from the school district. She came over to help me with the interviews. So it was a really good process. Linda was a very beneficial addition to the question and answers with each of these. So after we went through that, Lynn and I both did our calculating our scoring, and we both came out with KeyBank as our top score on each one. So that's what we're proposing here, is to switch our banking services from Wells Fargo to KeyBank. Funny thing is, it was KeyBank back before I got it. That's who it was before it switched to Wells Fargo. So now we're just switching back. So in my Springbrook software, KeyBank's already got a little spot in there. Just got to reactivate it. It's already set up. So that's our request, is to award the RFP for a 5-year contract to KeyBank. I believe it has a 2-year extension at the end of that. If there's any questions? Yes, sir?
So currently, all the services that you requested are available at Wells Fargo?
Yes, Wells Fargo.
But in their RFP, they did not?
No, Wells Fargo did provide all the services. It was one of the other 2 banks that we didn't interview. We did interview Wells Fargo and KeyBank and one other bank.
Oh, okay.
No.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Okay. City Attorney, read the resolution, please.
Resolution number 2015-7, a resolution authorizing the establishment of banking services with KeyBank.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the banking services for the city. Resolution 2015-7. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Resolution passes. Thank you, Dean. And next is number 7, supplemental budget.
Supplemental budget. There are items that, when we're doing the original budget, that don't come up. Things change throughout the year, and that's what we have here. Excuse me. There's a number of items that have changed. In the case of the one LSTA grant, that's basically carrying over the balance so we can close the grant out this year. That's the library grant. But if you'd like me to go from down through each one for the justification, or what would be your...
I just had a question on one thing. What's an AED?
AED, I thought, for heart attacks.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Defibrillator.
Love the visual.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was
Good job.
Can you turn around and get that for the camera?
Those would be...
And what we're doing is we're working with the fire department. They're going out with a contract to buy those so we can order them to them cheaper. And that's how we got a lot of them last time, is with the fire department, I think it was 5 years ago. Now the ones we have, we can no longer get parts for. They've now reached the end of their life. So we were able to we've got the battery we have in them now. When it runs out, we can't replace it again. So we're going to get in with the fire department and order them when they're going out with their purchase. This way, all the ones in the city buildings are the same. Fire departments, they're the same. They're the same everywhere. So.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Dean, how much carryover is there from 14 in the tourism motel tax?
In the motel tax, there's not a lot of carryover in there. Right, I believe, because most of it is paid out. The carryover, what I have here is at the end of, in last year's budget, we budgeted for $40,000 of revenue. We ended up getting 53. I couldn't pay the chamber everything we owed them, because at the end of the year, I would have been over budget, and the auditors would have written us up, and it would have been a big mess.
Right.
So we sent the chamber a letter saying, here's an IOU. We paid them in July against this year's budget, but I'm changing this year's budget, or I'll have the same problem at the end of this year, because we're bringing in more money than we expected.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Do we have an estimate on what the carryover is going to be for this year yet?
For this year, I'm working on the budget. Currently, I'm looking at about 1.1 million. So.
Which as a percent is somewhere around 13% of our revenues.
Right.
And we'll be bringing you some finance policies in the next month or two. Our goal will be 20. So, and when you think about back when the cutbacks were necessary more than a year ago now, we were dropping down somewhere around 4%. So it just gives you an idea. Our recovery has been significant so far, and we still have a ways to go, but we are improving.
And I'm saying 1.1, that's my first rough as we're going through making the budget here, but that's kind of what we're looking.
Any other questions? Okay, the city attorney, please read the resolution.
Resolution number 2015-8, a resolution...
Excuse me, I'm sorry. There's one correction. I just need it. On the LSTA grant, I'm sorry, there's a number 3175. It needs to be 3528. I'm sorry. Somehow I got the wrong number in that one spot.
Where is that?
It's kind of way down to the bottom. It's the LSTA grant. There's a number.
Second page.
Oh, second page.
On the second page, yeah, it's 3,175. Everything else here is right. The totals are right. Somehow,
Gotcha.
I must have had it written on a piece of paper and just grabbed the wrong number. It needs to be 3528, and that will complete the grant. Sorry.
Resolution number 2015-8, a resolution authorizing a supplemental budget amendment to the City of Lebanon 2014-15 budget.
Move to approve as amended?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the amended resolution 2015-8. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Resolution passes. Thank you, Dean. Next up, City Manager Gary Marks talking about the transient room tax revenue.
Well, you know, since 2008, I think most local governments, when they have discussions about revenue, it's a discussion where you're talking about not enough. So tonight's discussion is somewhat novel in that I need to address an issue to you of more money expected to be collected for the transient room tax. Significantly more money, and it's because of the new hotel that you see rising on the north end of town. We expect that hotel to be open by the middle of May, and in your packet, I provided you a report that gives you some idea of what we're talking about. On the second page near the top, it talks about the impact of the new hotel, and just some quick numbers right now, as Dean indicated. Last year, we brought in $53,000. Approximately $42,000 of that was paid over to the Chamber, primarily for their tourism grant program, but some for personnel also. We're looking at a total, because of the new hotel, rising to about $161,000. Now, when I talk about that number, it's not pie in the sky. I've met with folks at the hospital associated with the new hotel operation to verify the numbers. They said that we're solid, and if anything, we're a little conservative. So, and that's based on expected occupancy rates against expected nightly rental rates. So we're fairly confident that we've got a large sum of money that we haven't had before that will begin to be collected for operations starting in the middle of May. It will certainly impact next year's budget, which of course is a fiscal year July to June. We're estimating close to about $118,000 in new dollars. Most of this will be money from folks from out of town who are coming to visit us. So we need to have a discussion about what we're going to do with these funds. Now, I've met with Shelley at the chamber and have discussed this issue with her. We have an agreement with the chamber right now that says that 80% of the funds that we bring in from the transit room tax will be paid out to the chamber for a variety of issues, which I've delineated in my memo, but those have to do with having a visitor center for folks coming in from out of town. It also deals with the signage, the visitor center signage that's out on our thoroughfares, and also the tourism, although it's not directly addressed in our agreement. It's generally understood that a large sum of that money is used for the tourism, for lack of a better descriptive grant program. So if we were just to leave that agreement in place, the chamber would be collecting another approximately $86,000 on top of the 42 or so that they're seeing now. Pardon me?
Per annum.
Yes, yes. So, you know, I think Shelley expressed their willingness to certainly work with us on what would be best for the community. I think they're in the same place we are, that we're both serving our community and we want the best for it. So we also have an ordinance in place that says that a minimum of 70% of the revenues go to the chamber and a maximum 30% go to the city. Right now we use the money that comes to the city, which is governed by the agreement. The 20%, half of that money is used for city operations. The other half is used for the flowers on Main Street and those sorts of things that beautify our community for not only outside folks coming in to visit us, but us as home folks too. So I've spent some time talking with Paul and some others, and as I've encountered some of you over the last few weeks, I've addressed this issue. And so in order to provoke, and I say that in a positive way, provoke a discussion, I've kind of put together a composite of ideas, and I've assigned some numbers to them. I'm certainly not married to any of this, but my primary purpose is to provoke a discussion to get us into a collaborative discussion about what we want to do going forward. We do need to make some decisions soon, with a budget process knocking at our door right now. So just an observation that as someone who a year ago was looking for a new place to live and looking at this community as a potential place to live, my wife and I visited here because you all expressed interest in us, and we had to come on the weekend. And so we came here, showed up on a Saturday. First thing we wanted to do is we wanted to hit the visitor center and collect some information, maybe a community map and that sort of thing. Well, guess what? We're closed on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I think that with the new college in town and the continuous flow of folks from the outside who are coming in, evaluating the community, not only from the school perspective and, you know, should I go to school here, should I bring my young family here, but there are other folks who are looking at us from the other businesses that are in town. I think it would really pay a lot of dividend back to us if we could have that visitor center open on Saturday. Had a discussion with Shelley about that. It would entail expanding one of their positions to full-time, which is about a $15,000 price tag on that. Also, some of my discussions with you have indicated that if we were to give more money to the chamber through this largesse, that there seems to be a desire that it be something on a larger scale. Right now, I think the program we have in place is well, and it's good, and it serves a purpose with a small grant program. But from what I'm seeing is we lack the ability to bring to bear a larger grant to attract big things like Guitars Under the Stars or something like that, some kind of a program that we'd like to see grow. So just to provoke this discussion, if you look at the Saturday opening, and let's just throw a figure out there, $10,000 for a large-scale tourism grant, we're at $68,000 for the chamber, which now has 43. If you look at that total, the new total, 161,000, take the 68 off, the city's got a kitty of $93,000 to talk about. Talking with some of you, first I should back up and I want to talk about the Boys and Girls Club. One of the
Barry, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that didn't compute. So, okay, so you took the money they're already spending, added $10,000, an additional $10,000 for one big grant, and then another 15 for the position.
And again, I just want you guys to talk about this, and I fully expect you're going to do something different, but I want to give us a starting point. If you want someplace to start. I've probably thought about this way too much, so I just wanted to share what I've kind of, in a composite sense, have collected together. So if you take the 161,000 that we've projected, and you take off the 68, and this would be a change from right now. We have a percentage basis that we give money to the chamber. I'm suggesting a flat rate. We don't know where these tax monies are going. I think we can do a lot of good with it, but I don't think we need to have percentages. I think it's something that should be visited from time to time anyway, and I feel confident in a flat rate that might serve us all better. But so I'm thinking of something in the area of 68 for the chamber with some expanded programs like I've described. That means we've got $93,000 left for city purposes. The idea of the Boys and Girls Club has come up. At first I was saying to myself, well, what's the nexus between Boys and Girls Club and a transient room tax? Well, it has been suggested to me that the nexus is that a lot of folks, especially young families, when they're looking for a new community to move to, they're looking for those sorts of services, especially if you have two working parents or a single parent who's working. The services that come from an organization like Boys and Girls Club is very important and vital to them. So as far as promoting our community, there does seem to be a nexus. If that's something that you accept as a reason to fund the Boys and Girls Club from this source, I don't know what the number is. I put $10,000 down here, and that would bring us to down to 83. I've talked to some of you about the need for improving our communications, our external communications to the outside world. When I say that, I'm talking about our press releases, our social media presence, our website management, doing a better job of that as I try to restore the assistant position. To me, I'm wanting to build that capacity in and see an opportunity to partially fund that position with some of these revenues. At the end of the day, that means we would have $60,000 left over, and I want to suggest to you that there's a great opportunity here to start addressing some of our infrastructure needs that are associated with how we project ourselves to the outside world and what kind of community we are for ourselves. Things like money to leverage these grants that Jason was just talking about. Perhaps it has something to do with the restroom at River Park. Perhaps it has something also to do with improvements or changes we'd like to make it at Mural Park. I can see leveraging through a public-private partnership with some of our local financial institutions a facade improvement program for our businesses, particularly in the historic areas of town. Also, we've had some brief discussions in the past about our entry signs into the community. At present, we have one on the south end. Our thoroughfares coming from the east and west and from the north, we are not covered with any kind of a welcome sign. Those signs are expensive. I asked Jason to price them out for me, and I was shocked at how expensive they are. They're like over $20,000 a piece. So it's not something that we can make happen overnight, but money like this was a potential, maybe a 3-year program, we could cover all of the major access points in and out of town. So those are just ideas I throw out there. I am particularly fond of the infrastructure idea because we don't really have money for those sorts of items now, and a lot of those needs have just been sitting there for years. This is could be a dedicated fund that does not come from our property tax, but comes from the very folks who visit us, to take that money and turn it around and make this a better experience for them when they're visiting us. And the great side benefit to that is it makes our town better for us. So I'm looking for a discussion here. If we do any of the kind of changes that I've just suggested to you, it will mean a change in our ordinance, and it will also mean a change in our agreement with the chamber. So I'm all ears. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Like I said, I just wanted to juice the conversation.
Can we hear from Shelley at this point?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Sure. Come on up, Shelley.
That's what I was going to ask, too.
Hi, guys. Shelley here, Lebanon Chamber of Commerce. I think it's exciting, and I like the ideas that Gary and I talked about.
Shelley, is your mic on?
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, like I need that. I'm surprised you said that.
I didn't want to.
I actually wanted to add something else for your thought process, because I agree with everything you said. The parks particularly really bring people here. Through the Boys and Girls Club, they have a lot of tournaments, and those tournaments bring overnight people. And because of all the improvements they've done with Bob Smith Park and eventually with Cheetah Lake Fields, those are overnight. And the whole point of tourism money is you want people to spend the night there, because then they stay at the hotels and they stay at the campsites, which you also get this tax from, and then you reinvest it. It's the smart way to do it. So I love the idea of improving our parks, because that makes this more livable. It draws people to us. But I want to draw attention to Cheetah Lake Park. We've been funding it for $10,000 a year for a long time, and we will probably continue to do that from what you just said here. But I was talking to Ron Passmore today and actually asked him to give me a request, because I know they've been wanting to do this amphitheater for years. It's a huge project, and I thought of Bob. Bob said, Robert, not Bob, so you can, Robert said, what about something big? And I said, that big theater will draw so many people, and it would be so unique, nobody would have that. That could be the big piece you guys were talking about. And I'm not going to share it with you because I promised him I wouldn't, because he didn't, the details haven't been worked out, but he's got an enormous amount of funding and matching donors that are willing, once we get the campaign started for that particular project. If the city were to consider to identify that amphitheater project for $10,000 a year of this, he can go out and find matching funds, and they could actually get to the point of building that sooner. To me, that would be a huge investment. And again, the Boys and Girls Club, as I see it, ties in with the parks, because they're the ones that schedule all these events that we have. It's a wonderful investment. I do like the idea of having the visitor center open on Saturday. It's been a regret of mine that we're not, because we're really only serving the business community by working Monday through Friday. And Saturdays is when people come to town. So I think that's a great idea. But to do it, it would be Kim that we're talking about. She's my part-time employee. If she's going to give up her weekends, I would want her to become full-time, and that includes benefits. So that's where that price comes. But I'm totally in support of that, and everything you said, I think is a great idea. I have a request. In that report that I gave you guys, it showed guidelines with a little pie chart. That's like 10 years old. What I would suggest you do in your process of discussing this, identify the subjects that you think are important, and then let's create a new pie, so that if you do keep the percentages, which I think is a good idea because that gives us a goal, and that's the only different than you said, but we know how much percentage you want to give to parks, how much for sporting events, how much for this. So you tell us what your goal is in this pie chart. That makes it easy for us to distribute. And I have to remind you, once again, you guys keep referring to it as the money you give the chamber. This is not chamber money. We do not, I'm going to tell you that $1,000 a month is what we take from tourism to pay for Kim's part-time hours, and that's the only chamber money. So it's not chamber money, we're the stewards of your money, so don't think of it as chamber money. I can run my chamber without that, but I wouldn't want to do that without it, because I think it's a good match.
And just a reminder that you do go through a process with the board, and you approve each of the different expenditures that you do with that.
That's correct. We have a diverse community group. Matter of fact, we just added, one of the new gals from the hotel is going to be, we were looking for someone on one of the hotels in town to be on this committee, because it makes sense since it's their money that's coming into it. So we have a real diverse community group that meets once a month to look over the requests we have. And I think it's a good group. It's, my chair is Dawn Fountain from Lynn Gear, and once, whatever they approve, my board of 18 people has to give the final approval. So it's not half-heartedly, although I have to tell you, if a committee that's gathering and working together suggested, it would be pretty hard-pressed for the board to say, no, why have a committee if you're not going to listen to them, so.
I feel like the discussion of, relooking at the pie, what we do, I feel like this is like a work session worthy discussion, because it feels like we need to go deeper and have a little bit more community involvement, maybe. If we're going to fund the Boys and Girls Club, we have a representative from the Boys and Girls Club to talk about that. And, I imagine, and this has been kind of on a lot of people's minds, not just yours, Gary, and I've had more than one person bend my ear because everyone wants a piece of it. And it's not that much money once everyone gets a little tiny piece of it. And so it has to be really strategically done. I don't think it can be just a quick flip conversation. It has to be really thought out.
Yeah, and really, honestly, my main objective tonight is to initiate whatever process the council wants to pursue. But it was something that just couldn't be left to happen the way things are set up now.
Can I add one more thing on the downtown? One of the things Gary and I talked about is the downtown and how important it is to the community, as is showing in your vision. And an event that I went to with Walt and several other people a couple years ago in Astoria talked about improving tourism to the area. And there's several things that really draw people to the area. Water, of course, but we don't have a river right by downtown, but we could do a water feature, music, and art. Now, we could do those easily, and that's one of the things I like about Mural Park. But it is not that hard for us to change the experience people have in Lebanon. One of the things they call is corny. They said it's some place where you want to get kissed. In other words, seating where you feel like kissing your sweetie, you feel comfortable and you're happy. That's what they use. It's a kind of a kissable experience. And it would not be that hard to do that. There are programs, and I understand that Gary was very successful in initiating this in his other community, where some of the owners of the downtown businesses maybe would have a little skin in the game, but we give them a matching amount of money to do the improvement on the facade. Gary's got the experience from his past in having that, working with the financial institutions to make it work. And there's so many, the Main Street, Oregon, that are free to us, that want to help us. It's really very doable. That would be something that would pay off in spades. And again, that downtown people make up their mind by the time they hit Oak, what Lebanon's about. They hit that road in Oak Street, they've already decided what we are. So that is critically important.
This is why a work session is best. She'll go on all night.
All right, I'm serious. I'm sorry. Guilty.
Would the rest of the council like to have a work session?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I agree. Would we like to schedule that now so we can get that taken care of? I was looking at, we don't have a second meeting this month, the Wednesday, the 25th. Maybe a noontime meeting?
That works for me.
Wayne?
Possibly.
Okay.
Noon, yeah.
I'm usually out of town on Wednesday, but I come back for this.
Okay.
Noon is a little more difficult.
Is it? Okay. We could do an evening if we had to. Is that bad for you, Jason?
It's important enough to me that I'll be here.
Okay.
My wife's 7.
Wednesday, the 25th?
Yeah.
I think so.
That's 9 months till Christmas.
Bob?
I'll make it.
Okay.
Is there any information you want me to prepare for you to help you go into this?
I'd like to just kick out a couple of things here so we can possibly have some more discussion about that. and see if that is going to, who we want to invite to that. In addition, I like Gary's suggestions. I think those are quite appropriate. One of the things I would like to also have us consider is a contingency fund, because I think that setting aside some dollars can help grow that, what's the big thing. And I encourage the chamber to do that on their side. And I think it would be appropriate for us to do some contingency things too, because that could build up in 2 or 3 years to a very sizable amount and could provide something really nice.
And you're talking about a category contingency for that category of, okay.
Or a capital fund,
capital,
not,
yeah.
not contingency
For-
necessarily, like,
Yeah,
not
but
for
I mean,
emergency.
set aside.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Reserve fund.
I think that's kind of what I was talking about when I said infrastructure, but it could be, I don't care what we call it.
Right.
But some sort of a capital fund that we don't have to spend it all every year.
Right, right.
That we can save it up and program it over, with a capital improvement plan over a course of years.
Right. The next thing, in relationship to inviting and being appealable to tourists, one of the things that we may want to think about in the discussion with the chamber, with the Boys and Girls Club, is what services that might be offered and available from them in the evening and on the weekend. Because some of the activities, families may need some care. And that could provide an incentive, because parents bring their children with them, but they may want to go do an adult activity on Saturday evening. And if there's some available resources, I know in the military that was a particularly successful thing for us in our Boys and Girls Club operation. So I would like to have some discussion in and around that.
Could I offer you a little insight on that? Paul and I have had 2 or 3 discussions with Chris Latimer about those subjects. Her interest, and she may be interested in that idea too, she's got a particular interest in their summer programs, which right now they don't really have funding for. They did a partnership with Sweet Home last year that seemed to work pretty well, and they wanted to bring that here. So I know that as we talk to Chris about this, she's going to express this whole idea of how do we fund summer. But I think maybe the evening things would be, and weekends could be a very worthwhile discussion too.
Can I say one more thing? I apologize. It's something you and I talked about. When we plan big events, I don't think that you want to be in the business of planning big events. I think you want to attract big events.
Right.
Because you don't want to get into the detail of what entertains you. Like, for instance, the Guitars Under the Stars, by the way, we granted them $1,000. So we listened to your request. But he's got the details, and he will figure that out. I think that you want to attract these people, and if you do these things in the parks and downtown, those kind of people will want to come have a second jamboree here or a huge art festival.
Yes.
But the details of how they do it, I'm not sure we want to get involved in that.
Right.
Especially once
Yeah,
we put a
don't-
kissing corner
We don't care
in.
whether it's
What?
pistachio or
Yeah.
strawberry ice cream.
Right.
I mean, we want ice cream. The other thing that I want to just make sure that we have a good discussion and that we center in on the numbers of the available resources. I'd like to see a little bit more detail about the current tax that's being generated from the occupancy in the hotels and rooms that are in now, and what transfer is going to occur from those facilities into the new facility. Because there's likely to be not just 100% increase in the new facility, there's going to be a drop-off. And so I'd like to see...
Yeah, that's been accounted for.
A little bit more staff.
Yeah.
If you could just kind of run through those numbers with us, that would be helpful.
Okay. I'm hearing maybe, Jason, you can't make it, right, on the 20? I was
Noon
gonna
I
ask.
can do, yeah.
Noon you can do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 25th.
Oh, that's when I put it on the calendar.
And Wayne, you're not okay with noon, is that correct?
Yeah, I'll be here.
You can do it, okay. Is noon then that day, okay? 25th for a work session? We'll do a lunch work session, the 25th. Is that okay, Linda?
I'm not here, but...
Okay.
That's a Wednesday, isn't it?
Yes, Wednesday.
Okay.
Okay, we'll set it for Wednesday, the 25th.
Good. Gary, you let me know if there's anything else you want me to bring for you, or copies of anything for everybody.
Will do.
And I'll work with you, Gary, we'll figure out the people to invite, if there's anybody else that, we'll get the Boys and Girls Club here, and we'll put it out to the community.
I would almost like to discuss it as a council first, before we bring groups in. I don't know if that's everyone's, I think you bring groups in right away and all of a sudden we're getting pitched. I'd almost like to discuss a game plan first and then maybe have a second session where we bring in the groups.
Well, I think...
We got time here, we can do that, I mean, it's...
And we could have the initial discussion be with people we've invited that are particular players. I mean, there's no point in us discussing this without, and saying we're going to give it to the Boys and Girls Club without getting Boys and Girls, we specifically want to hear from her. We specifically need, chamber representation. So there's specific people that need to be at the table from the beginning.
Would it work if we had, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 representatives come and speak, and then reserve the rest of the time for the council to discuss?
My only hesitation is that there are a lot of deserving nonprofit organizations in this city, and I'm a huge proponent of the Boys and Girls Club, but I don't want to give the impression that we've already decided that we're going to fund the Boys and Girls Club. I want to talk as a group. I know it's going to be an open meeting, but I want to talk as a group first, and then perhaps the next week or the following week.
I share that.
Well, then I need to hear from the entire council. What format do you want to see?
I wouldn't want to feel exclusion from another, if the Boys and Girls Club is invited and the Soup Kitchen is invited, I don't want Partners for Progress saying, why weren't we invited? Does that make sense?
I would prefer that we as a council have a work session by ourselves first.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where
And they're welcome to be...
They can come.
They can come, and then if we have questions, maybe then they could come to the table and
But
answer a question.
I think we should include Shelley.
Yes. Shelley, yes.
Not just the council, we need Shelley.
Already invested.
Categories is what you guys need to identify first. Once you've identified your categories that you're going to have in this pie, then you figure out who you want to involve. That way you're starting from...
Yeah, I think
wide
that is
selection,
Yeah.
and you're
a
not
good discussion, too.
over-promising and under-delivering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let me expand on that. So if the objective of the work session is to identify categories, do you want to assign some rough ideas of numbers, or do you just want to have the categories at this point?
I think I just want to discuss options personally.
Yeah, and
I want to
we-
throw ideas out there and discuss them.
We may
No, I think-
want to go beyond categories.
I
in the
think we may want to go to numbers.
I think
Yeah, because
numbers-
I'd like to have a discussion about the fixed versus variable
Yeah, me too.
rate thing, 'cause I'd like to get that out and have that discussion, because I have some feelings about that, but I don't know whether my feelings represent the rest of the council's feelings. And I might be educated about what my initial thought is about a fixed allocation versus a percentage. So I'd like to have that discussion.
As you think about that issue between now and the work session, keep in mind that right now we really, until we get a track record of collections with the new hotel, all we've got are estimates, and I'm told that we're conservative. So whatever we talk about, I want to stay conservative, but whatever we talk about, there's probably more than we're going to be talking about.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have a percentage, then the number moves. All numbers move. So just keep that in mind. I'm not advocating one way or the other. Ultimately, I recognize and want the council to come up with the policy that works. So that's my only objective.
Yeah.
What I'd like to...
And my initial reaction is that I would be more comfortable with a fixed allocation going to the chamber and the variable amount remaining with the council for distribution to the chamber or to any other group based upon what we would decide in our visioning process is where the priorities are going. But I'd like to have the discussion with the other council members to see if that makes sense.
My fear is to have this pot of money, this is part of what I would like discussed, this pot of money that people are coming to, because that's what we got away from finally, when we had the agreement with the chamber. People were coming to us, and we were having these minute, very long discussions with very well-deserving, tons of groups want
$100
money.
requests.
And and it's like, God, we are not a tourism committee. This is not this body's focus. We got to get that away from this body. So when we redirected it, great. So I'm worried about us reserving more money, unallocated. It's there, and it's not a secret that it's there, and people are going to come to us non-freaking stop. We have to address how we deal with that money so that we don't spend 2 hours of every council meeting addressing very deserving people.
I completely agree with you.
Absolutely.
That's where the fund that Robert was talking about in this whole capital fund, I think it becomes an internal fund that's built on some sort of a capital improvement plan.
A specific project in mind. I mean, you don't want to just get,
Exactly.
Everyone will have an idea of what that is, but if the idea is we're focused on an amphitheater, and so we're trying to build this fund for that, then it's not touchable.
I will discourage this council from building a process where annually we sit down and take applications and ideas. I want a long-range plan.
Enough Tylenol in town to take care of that problem.
We need a long-range plan that's built on public input, for sure, but something that assures that the money ends up at the end of the day making a difference. And if we divide it up in too many small pieces, it's going to be diffused and not have the impact we want.
It seems a little premature to have this discussion before we get to the end of the visioning process. Does the visioning process affect what we do right now?
It very well could. And, one of the decisions that might come out of our initial discussions might be just to address the issue with the chamber and put the rest of the money aside until we know exactly where the vision is taking us. That would be a very logical decision to make if that's where we decide to go.
We're no worse off.
All right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we'll have a meeting next Wednesday, the 25th at noon, and we'll have just us as a discussion. The public's welcome to come.
Paul, is that going to be in the evening or the?
Yeah, noon.
Noon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it
Anything else, Gary?
next Wednesday?
No.
And Gary, I would like to see
next
just your idea that you gave just on paper, just maybe with the chart or however you want to break it out, but
Yeah,
just to see
and
that
I'll come
idea.
prepared to run through the estimate itself about where we are now with collections and where we see that going, so that you can have some more detail on that.
Okay. All right. Number 9, South Sandium Enterprise Zone property tax abatement request.
As the council's aware, we're in this enterprise zone together with Albany, and from time to time, we are asked to approve changes to the agreement that benefit various businesses around the region. That's what we have here. We have a change that will assist a business in Albany. I don't think there's really a whole lot here to discuss for us. It has absolutely no impact on our revenues, and it's just to the benefit of this business. So I would recommend that we approve this.
Okay, we'll have approval. Wait, we'll have the city attorney read the resolution.
Resolution number 2015-9, a resolution approving an extended property tax abatement agreement between the City of Albany, a co-sponsor of the South Sandium Enterprise Zone, and ATI Pacific Cast Technologies, Inc.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 2015-9. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Resolution passes. And number 10, last, is the city manager's report.
Some of this is repetitive from what you heard from our consultants tonight on the vision. A lot of my time in the last few months has gone into the vision. I'm not going to waste your time going over all of that again, except to remind everyone that we are moving forward with the sounding board tomorrow night to begin putting together some of the ideas about our focus areas. So we're getting to the exciting portion of the process, and we should start seeing some solid ideas coming forward soon. Just a quick update on the Santiam Canal negotiations with the City of Albany. It has evolved into an idea of looking at the cost associated with, or what it costs the City of Albany to provide the City of Lebanon with a water intake. Also what it costs the City of Albany to facilitate our storm drainage, and also an idea that they've put on the table that frankly I'm still trying to get my arms wrapped around, and that's the idea of evaluating what the canal's value is to the City of Lebanon as an amenity to the community. I'm not confident that that's going to get legs or where that's going to go. However, Albany has ceded to us the first draft of the scope of work for that study, and we'll represent you well in that scope of work. Once we have a draft ready, and we're still working on that with Ron and Rob, we'll be getting back together with the Albany team to further discuss that scope of work and where we go with that potential study. At this point, I'm not sure where this all goes. I think Albany has come to the realization that it's very likely that we will have our own water intake. So I think that's something that is becoming more and more a resolved issue, except for the interim, and how funding of the canal between the two communities takes place. And in fact, there's this, I discussed this at the last meeting, how the existing agreement may come into play here. As we're all aware, we've had a verbal agreement for some time as far as what we're paying the City of Albany for use of the canal for our water intake. That was something developed by the Public Works Directors some years ago, and it got away from the agreement, but not really, because the agreement did say, unless otherwise agreed, 1/3 of the expense of the canal will be borne by the City of Lebanon, 2/3 by the City of Albany. Albany has made it known that they're interested in going back to the agreement. My feeling is that it really doesn't reflect what the true costs are, but there is a process in the agreement that we are bound to follow. That includes City of Albany providing to us by the end of March an assessment of their expenses and their expected participation by the City of Lebanon. If we disagree to that, there is a process where the parties mutually identify an arbitrator of sorts who works this all out and then tells us what our participation will be. We may not like the result of that. However, I think we can take some solace in that if we continue to move forward with developing our own intake, this is a temporary situation for us. So we will keep you up to date as those negotiations go forward, both on the study level and on the existing agreement level. So,
Gary, I would only add that, I mean, in what I remember from the agreement, there's also a cap of no more than a 10% increase every year as provided in there. So even if they say, come back and say, you know, you owe us this much, my understanding and my interpretation of that contract would mean it couldn't go up more than 10% of what we paid last year.
Yeah, and what's not clear to me is what happens when an arbitrator goes beyond that. The agreement doesn't really say. It says that Albany cannot, I think, they can't propose more than a 10%, but what the arbitrator does, I'm not sure that they're bound to that. So I'm not sure where this all goes, but it's interesting. That's all I have at this time.
Okay. Last chance for public comments tonight, second chance. Bill Sullivan.
Yeah, pain in the butt again. On this, where you're going to have the chamber open on Saturday, why don't you also open it on Sunday? Maybe just for a short period of time to feel it out, because there's people that travel on Sundays too, not only Saturdays. But, put a feeler out and try it for a little while. If it don't pan out, go to 6 days and forget it.
Shelley's nodding and saying she'll work Sundays.
Bill?
Thanks, Bill. That's a good idea. Any other comments?
Yeah, Glenn Uppard, Glen Oak Drive. Just a quick one on your fluorine. You guys are in a better position to evaluate a lot of the information than the general public is, and it's been decided and voted on, and I would discourage you from really trying to open it up too much to public input. I just, you guys make the decision whether if there's anything really major that's come down the pike, okay, then you ought to address it. Otherwise, I don't see you need to invite a big meeting on fluorine, This is coming from somebody with rotten teeth.
Thanks, Glenn.
Music to my ears.
Any other public comments?
Every meeting.
Okay, I accidentally skipped items from council. Any items from council?
I've got something. Friday night at the Elks, the Strawberrians are having a fundraiser, a spaghetti dinner, and it's $7 a plate. Last year it was very good, so I'd like to see everybody there. It starts at 5:30 at the Elks, Friday.
All right.
Why does everybody do a spaghetti feed? Nobody does a... Yeah, no, pasta. Everybody does a spaghetti feed.
Need a rib
I just
feed.
don't like it.
Ribs. Okay, I have one thing. I wrapped up my tour of schools this last week. I did about almost 2,000 students, I think it was, 8 schools. Wayne came out with me last week. Thank you very much, Wayne. Appreciate it. I went to schools I didn't even know existed. We're out at Lacombe School, and it was amazing how many students are out at some of these schools. But it was a fun time. We got out the message about the mayor's If I Were the Mayor contest. So hopefully this year we're going to get a lot of responses. We also did a video that is available for the students to see that couldn't make it, or the classes that couldn't do it. And I just want to call out somebody in the audience, Debbie Shimon. Debbie, I thank you so much for all the work that you did. She has just been my right hand in this, and organizing it and setting things up and being there, and even being at one of the events when she was sick. Didn't even come into work, but she came to the event. So I really appreciate your help. Thank you. And she's the kind of person that you don't see out in the public, so it's just really nice, and I appreciate you out there helping me. Thank you. Yep, go ahead, Dre.
I was just going to report that we do have dismissals. We authorized the settlement agreement last meeting, and we have dismissals in all of the cases with Mr. Weldon. And the only remaining case I believe that I'm working on is we are going to be submitting briefs in the in the Ask Me versus City of Lebanon case, which is now being heard in front of the Oregon Supreme Court.
Very good. Items from the press? Do you have any questions?
No, but I agree with Rebecca Grizzle. I had the same conversation with my boss.
On?
He just spaghetti.
Spaghetti, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, well, we almost have a majority on that then.
There's a reason they don't do steak feed fundraising.
Steak feed. I think ribs would be good too.
Crab and beer is much better.
Yeah. All right, anything else? Any other business? All right, meeting's adjourned.